Tonight we break down some early poll numbers for 2014. Hey, good evening. Nice to have you in. It's the state of mind of moi, and I'm always interested in your state of mind as well. So engage me on this program, and we tell you how to do that when we wrap up. Tonight, Professor Marion Orr from the Taubman Institute at Brown University. He's the guy who gets a lot of attention for the data that they produce when it comes to evaluating our collective state of mind, how we think about the world and Rhode Island, and then, of course, matching up the favorability ratings of candidates and judging what their electability is. And so the professor will be with us when we engage after our rundown. Let us check our rundown. Speaking of, a very disappointing morning. Terribly, terribly, terribly disappointing. An opportunity to lead, and he's not doing it. The people are so discouraged. The numbers on our direction are so bad, you got to take a look at them. And I'm going to freak out if the opponents of the Sakonnet River Bridge actually have some of their ideas make traction. So hang in for that. And there's a big day coming for Allen. Big, big day. It's another one of those snap your undies types of announcements coming from the mayor of Cranston when it comes to the local political scene. I'll explain what I mean by all of that as we go. So let's dig deeper into this rundown. And did you see, you know, you're working for a living, right? You probably didn't get a chance to see. You might have seen some highlights of the president mid-morning today talking about the idea that we got by this debt ceiling default. And, you know, what a great chance for the president of the United States to say, whew, all right, let's get back to work. Instead, all he did was complain and scold for the first 4 minutes of his presentation. Just put some edits together here for me to just give you some highlights of the tone of what he must have had a bad breakfast or something.
Now, there's been a lot of discussion lately of the politics of this shutdown. But let's be clear, there are no winners here. These last few weeks have inflicted completely unnecessary damage on our economy. And of course, we know that the American people's frustration with what goes on in this town has never been higher. That the American people are completely fed up with Washington. We hear some members who pushed for the shutdown say they were doing it to save the American economy. But nothing has done more to undermine our economy these past 3 years than the kind of tactics that create these manufactured crises. Some of the same folks who pushed for the shutdown and threatened default claimed their actions were needed to get America back on the right track, to make sure we're strong. But probably nothing has done more damage to America's credibility in the world, our standing with other countries, than the spectacle that we've seen these past several weeks.
Enough already. We get it. Smile. Smile, Mr. President. Holy cow. You want to talk about breaking the neck of the person whose neck is already broken? Somebody's got a broken neck, and you go over there, and then you step on it? I mean, it took him 4 minutes to get to even something upbeat.
Now, the good news is we'll bounce back from this. We always do. America's the bedrock of the global economy for a reason.
Oh, God. You know, all due respect to the president, I think I've been pretty fair about this entire situation with the Republicans making some bad tactical choices. But he may have a little slight depression problem. This whole thing might be wearing him down a little bit. What would have been nice this morning is for the president to say, by the way, all right, that was a tough one. We are going to reach across each other's aisles now, and we're going to figure this out. We're not going to have the same kind of episode come February and January and February, when we have to meet up on this kind of a thing again. We're going to get cracking right there. And by the way, for the rest of the world that's pitying us or worrying about us or laughing at us or thinks we're weak, you know what? Get out of our dugout. We have some real fights and we have some real ideological differences in this country, but we're the United States of America and we will put our financial house in order. You can bet on it, you can bank on it. Let's go. Instead, it was just an opportunity to just bang on the Republicans again and create. If you didn't know any better, you would think that the president does not have the best interest of the country in mind, and all he has in his mind is a 2014 slam bam, whitewash of the congressional elections, burying Republicans so deep he doesn't ever have to answer to Obamacare again. You would think. Wow, it was a bad scene this morning. I'm very, very disappointed with the president. And so everyone seems to be disappointed with everything. The Rasmussen poll is out, and it matches the Wall Street Journal NBC poll of last week. In fact, it's even worse. Right now, 13% of Americans say that we're heading in the right direction. That would be 1-3. The problem is not on your television. Those are correct numbers. 91% of the Republicans say the country's headed in the wrong direction. 85% of unaffiliated voters agree, and even 66% of Democrats agree. That's increased 25% since the shutdown began. Those are pretty tough numbers. It's the reality. It's how we feel after this kind of debacle that we just went through. But here's the one that always cracks me up. Check this one out. 78% of the Rasmussen respondents say they would vote to get rid of the entire Congress and start over. Phonies. Would you stop lying to yourselves? If that were true, we'd have a new Congress every couple of years. Do you think we're going to have a new Congress in 2014? Come on. Everybody stinks except the one that I vote for in my own backyard. The syndrome continues. I don't see it ever breaking. I understand we're all frustrated. When we stop lying to ourselves, maybe the politicians will stop lying to us. To Sakonnet and the bridge hearings, the Legislative Commission here in Rhode Island has been reviewing the finances of all the bridge structures and how we're going to make this whole thing happen. And the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority is trying to figure out how it's going to toll the Sakonnet, pay for all the bridges via those tolls. The headline in the Providence Journal shows you that this is just some of the opponents' sentiment at that hearing yesterday. The only thing I want to say to the opponents is, I am with you, I am with you, I am with you. We should not be tolling that bridge. It is a local road. It's elevated, but it's a local road. The economy of Aquidneck Island, Portsmouth, Tiverton, Newport, Middletown, the whole thing, the invitation to Massachusetts people who feel like they're part of the neighborhood will go away if the toll gets any higher than a dime. This has been a debacle from the start, but please, oh Lord, please, you guys who oppose this bridge, stop suggesting that we borrow the money to keep the bridge intact. In other words, the maintenance budget. Go ahead and argue for millions of dollars worth of cuts in the general fund of $800+ million that we have available to us, or in general funding for this kind of thing. Talk about discretionary decisions, but do not suggest, like they were at this hearing last night, that we borrowed the money to maintain the bridge. Stop it. Please stop it. Bad idea, because you know what? They may take it on. We don't want that. Alan Fung. He was here the other day. You saw him the other day. He was here and he was talking about all sorts of things, and I was asking him about whether he was running for governor and blah, blah, blah. He was being coy. He was being fun. He's a good guy. I like Alan. And he polled well in the Brown poll, and our guest will tell you about that coming up next segment. But today he put out a little bit of a date, and it's very exciting. Here's what he told our newsroom at WPRI Radio.
I'll be making an announcement on November 4th about my future, and I guess everyone will have to, be there when we have the location and time set up so we can find out what it's about.
Oh my God! I'm so excited. Don't you? Are you just? What do we, Sue on Saturday Night Live? Remember that Kristen Wiig? Just looked this up for me. Sue, the excited person. She used to get all excited about the most stupid things. Does he think we're all Sue? I have a date. You'll have to wait. Oh my goodness. How about, hey, yeah, I'm running for governor. We're going to formalize the thing on November 4th. I'm going to treat you all like adults while I, pursue the governorship. As opposed to, November 4th. You're going to love the announcement. I am so tired of the same cycles and ridiculous consultant behavior for everybody who wants to run for office in this place. Awful. Stop it, Alan. Grow up. Please. Now, the Sox are 2-2. I didn't even put a graphic up for this. I'm just thinking if they don't win tonight, I've never seen a series where I felt such a jump ball about who could win. Back and forth, but at 2-2, they got to win tonight. So that's a Yankee fan sentiment, too. When we come back, the professor from Brown with numbers that matter. Stay with us. Welcome back in. If we didn't have Mary and Orrin what they do at Taubman, the local media wouldn't know what to do, because other than our sister station, Eyewitness News and Channel 12, and the polls that they pay for, most of the media anymore doesn't do it. Good to see you. Thanks for coming over.
Thank you for inviting me. Glad to be here.
The service that the school provides, at least in keeping the pulse of the community alive, is a valuable one. Give me a 30-second synopsis on what the Taubman Institute really is designed to do and what the charge is.
Well, the charge is we do a couple of things. One of our major charges is to teach students how to do public policy analysis, both at the undergrad and grad level. So we have a huge instructional part of our job. But the other part of our work at the center is to be that part of Brown that sort of reaches out to the larger Rhode Island community on all kinds of civic and public policy kinds of issues. The polling unit is one component of that, which we've been doing for more than 20-something years. It's an endowed polling unit, so it's continually supported through the university's endowment.
So Darrell West is a guy who we knew a lot for a long period of time, and he left there to go down to Washington. You've been doing this now for a couple, 3 years.
I've been doing this now for about 4.5,
okay.
Going on 5 years.
Flies,
yeah, it does go fast.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Enjoying it?
I'm having a good time doing this. It's a very, very different kind of academic role. I do my research on urban politics and American politics, but the Taubman Center has the special mission around public affairs and public policy. And one thing about public policy, Dan, is we're very hands-on. So we want our students to have an opportunity to go into Providence and Central Falls and various parts of Rhode Island to apply what it is they're learning in their classes.
And they do, and they ask good questions. I've spoken to the students there at various times, and they are very engaged. And of course, they're working with the same data that the rest of the media is. Let me put some of it up, because I want to talk about process a little bit here. This is some of the data that comes way early on for the 2014 election, no doubt, but it was surprising to some in terms of the lead that Gina Raimondo, for instance, would have in a Democratic primary environment over Angel Taveras. Of course, Raimondo, the treasurer, Taveras, the mayor of Providence, and you can see some of those breakdowns. Interestingly enough, I opined on this last week that women are a little bit more chauvinistic than men, if you take a look at that dynamic. But let me flip this, though, real quick to another poll that the Taveras people put out, which had a very, very different take. It had in a Democratic primary, Angel Taveras leading on favorability and all the way down to about a 16, 17-point lead in an actual primary election. So my question for you is, just in terms of data and how the numbers come out differently, why did they come out so differently?
Well, all polls are different. This poll was conducted, a month or so after, I believe, the mayor's poll was released, at least. So that's one thing. We got two different polls. And it's a snapshot. Polls are always a snapshot of what's occurring at the time the poll takes place. Polls can differ in terms of question wording.
Methodology?
Methodology could also be. I don't know exactly what kind of method the mayor's office, the mayor's poster used, because I did not get any sort of release of the method portion.
Mm-hmm. Yours, though, methodology, you are a telephone poll, correct?
We call registered voters.
Okay.
Yes, over the telephone.
All right.
Yes.
And so, listen, there have been times when I say, this can't be right, and it comes pretty damn close. Yeah. It's way early. You'll probably poll, what, 3 or 4 times before the 2014 election?
Certainly, yes. This is very early. And Dan, one of the things that we should let your viewers know is that it's early, and it shows in our poll because some 25% of the respondents in our poll have not made a decision yet about whom they're going to vote for.
I don't. I'm not surprised by that.
I think it's early. That's why I think that's been partly why.
Frankly, I think it's low. I would submit that even your numbers has nothing to do with your methodology. It has to do with the world. Even your numbers are soft for either one of these two candidates. That someone responds and say, "Yeah, I'd vote for Gina Raimondo," or "Yeah, I'd vote for Angel Tavares," or even Ellen Fung, the mayor of Cranston. This early, it's more gut-checked instinct than it is a learned, reasoned decision.
I think you're right. These candidates at some point will have to take specific positions on various policy matters, and the question of how that position would move voters in one direction or the other. The question of money and how much money Gina Raimondo and Alan Fung or Tavares going to have to spend on the campaign will make a huge difference. I think we have to see where the various interest groups are going to break in this election. I'm thinking particularly right now about the labor unions, the various minority groups. You mentioned the women in our poll showing strong support among Gina Raimondo. So it's very early.
Well, actually, in your poll, men were stronger for Raimondo than women were.
Yes. She's doing good.
I think there are more women chauvinists in this state than there are men chauvinists.
The treasurer is doing well in our poll among both gender groups.
All right. What I want to talk about, though, is what always comes up in these polls. It drives me crazy, and I want to talk to the professor about that when we come back. Stay with us. The Taubman Center at Brown is a really important resource for media and for the general public in evaluating not only polling data for politicians, but just kind of the pulse of the people. I had just put up a Rasmussen poll in our rundown tonight that just came out today, where 13% of Americans think we're going in the right direction. 13%. 91% of Republicans with are fed up. 88% of whatever it was. Oh, Steve, very good. At 91, 85, 66, depending on Republican. Your data, without getting into the weeds on it, more or less reflects the same kind of aggravation. Rhode Island's been kind of in a mental, psychological funk for a while, and it doesn't seem like it's gotten much better.
No, this right track, wrong track question we've had on the poll for a number of years, Dan. And it's clear that a vast majority of people believe that we're on the wrong track. And then when you look at the economic question, how do you think we're doing economically? Significant numbers, 80% plus, say that we're doing poor, not so well economically. So I think there's a real connection between perceptions of how we're doing economically and the question of whether or not we're on the right track as a state.
Well, here's the question. I'd like to, I'm sure you can't, just like Tony can't go anywhere without being asked about the weather, you probably can't go anywhere without being asked about what kind of poll question people want to have. But one of the things I'd like to see is the vision question. A, do you want vision in leadership? And B, do you think anyone has shown it? Because I think at the end of the day, this place is just sans some leadership vision, a description of where we are and where we want to be. I think that's really at the core of a lot of the political malaise that we have around here. Anyway, my thought.
I think one of the reasons why the state treasurer is so popular in our poll, she's pulling numbers around 50-something plus %. She was in the 60s before that. It's because people, I believe, view the treasurer as coming in and taking on a big policy issue that many people really believe had to be addressed.
And no matter how they chip away at her, she at least has a signature on a project management success story. Now, if the lawsuits start to come and the thing starts to fall apart, so too will some of her.
It'll be a dent in her armor, no question about it.
But here's the thing that drives me crazy about your poll. I am sure it's absolutely accurate, and it drives me nuts. The number of people who don't even know who the House Speaker and the Senate President are, the don't know factors on the most important and powerful people who have the most important positions in this state. The naivete is palpable.
Yes.
Your thought on that?
My thought is, number one, I think you're right on target. But the other point I would say is that our poll really reflects what people believe. So we ask people.
Or know or don't know.
Oh, don't know, yes. We ask them, what do you think of the job Secretary of State Ralph Wallace is doing? Well, some people,
who
Secretary of State, I thought that was Hillary Clinton or something, something like John Kerry.
It's scary,
yes.
isn't it?
And of course, you know, and many of your viewers probably know that Gordon Fox and the Senate President are very powerful individuals, but they tend to be under the radar screen in terms of how the public look at them and voters. I mean, we're interviewing and asking registered voters who don't know.
Here's a project for your kids.
Yeah.
Really? How do you change that?
Yeah.
Big question.
That's a big question, an important question, because these are very, very important positions in state government, especially here in Rhode Island.
Thanks for checking the pulse. Come back a lot because we're going to need you, okay?
Thank you very much for inviting me, Dan.
And you can always check out the information at the Taubman Center for Public Policy at Brown. Your State of Mind when we come back. Stay with us. Now remember, you can feed back to us via the voicemail and the email and the social network and all of that on anything that you see on any given night. Here's a voicemail left from, there you go, there's some of the information, 228-1886, state of mind at myRITV.com. Here's one voice on the voicemail from the other night.
I watched your show this evening and really enjoyed it, especially Joe the Barber. At least I got to see what he looks like for real. And I got to admit, that guy, Joe the Barber, he's such a great guy. He's really a character, and love to hear him.
Yeah, you know what? You now have inflated Joe the Barber's ego to the point where it will be unmanageable, Matt. Don't do that anymore. Please, don't do that. It was fun to have Joe on. That was on Tuesday night. Here again is the information. You can have a voicemail left, and we will play it on the air at 228-1886. State of Mind at myRITV.com is the email. We'll post your thoughts there, and of course, you can contact us through Twitter or Facebook. That's it for My State of Mind. Thanks for yours. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7:30 on myRITV. Good night.